when I was younger, I had the belief, and I think I came across as like cocky to some people or like arrogant. But as soon as I get that swim to where it needs to be, I think that I honestly believe in myself to open enough doors to perform at a super high level. And so I'm a bit like, I think I can do it, but you need a lot of self-belief because it's such a hard work. When you're trying to also be an influencer or a content creator, I'm not one, and I train 30 hours a week, and I don't want to film my sessions, not because I'm private, but because I'm there to train and my focus is on my session. This will be the first winter where I'm training to win, and that's like so much easier. So for anyone who's not at that level yet where they are training to win, I'm like,
Hey, my name is William, and today, alongside Robin, we had the pleasure to speak with William Draper for the third episode of the Emulation podcast. Will is a 24-year-old triathlete coming from the Isle of Man who's had a remarkable year, winning his first professional race. In this episode, we talked about his hopes for the season ahead and simply his very unique journey in sports. And just before starting, we would like with Robin to take a moment to thank you all for the support you gave us on the first episodes with Jake and Jack. It really means a lot, and we are sure you will enjoy this one as well. So, without any further ado, I would like you now to please welcome William Draper.
I think we would like to maybe bring you back to the very beginning. I think it's nice to hear a story from the start and like a bit to know how it started for you. I think you were born in the Isle of Man, so that
yeah.
must be something particular to grow up on an island. If you can like run us through the your childhood and your first connection to sport, maybe as well.
Yeah, my brother actually got started in cycling before me. So, like most kids, he played football and then he hurt his knee. And my mum's friend, her son was a professional cyclist. He actually ended up winning an Olympic medal. His name was Pete Kenyon. So, we were introduced into cycling through Pete Kenyon. And obviously, Mark Cavendish, and the scene for cycling on the Isle of Man is like so famous. And it's like anywhere that if the grassroots level is big, then that's why there's professionals at the end of the sort of pyramid. So because there's like hundreds and hundreds of kids taking part, and there's like a facility for it and people that volunteer and help out, then at the end of that, after sort of 15 years, that's why you see it like pros, and that's why it's famous for professionals. So then I did cycling from 10 until I was 17. And it's weird because like at 12, I won the British National Championships for under 12s. And like, then you go to school and suddenly you think you have a career and you think that like your life is, you know what you're doing and you're years ahead of everyone else. But obviously then I got a little bit older, and my brother stopped riding, and I kind of felt that the sport, and for me, I wasn't enjoying it as much, but I didn't want to give up like entirely. So I decided to take a go at triathlon because it's another thing on the Isle of Man where there's a good club and things like that. So again, it's just when you're younger what you're introduced to and what's available to you. So triathlon was available and I gave it a try. And at the time, my mum and dad and brother were at the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast, and I remember thinking, I'll do a bit of cycling and a bit of triathlon, but when I started triathlon, I think the bike stayed pretty dusty. I couldn't be bothered riding it. I was trying to learn how to swim and try and improve my run and stuff like that. And then I was just getting into it and I thought this is going to be good. And then obviously COVID came around. And luckily during COVID, they put on some events and they were like social distancing events, but I actually got my professional license at one of them events, which was cool. And then again, like everything was happening so slow, you'd race like once or twice a year during them years. And after COVID, I was doing more and more, and I picked up my coach, who is my most recent coach, and his name was Mark Buckingham, and he was Johnny Brownlee's training partner for Tokyo Olympics. And he invited me to Leeds to train with Johnny and Al and Gordon Benson, who were the three who did Rio Olympics. And then from there, I then got invited onto another training camp with them, and then eventually they were like, "You can come to Leeds." I don't think they even said it. I think I just came. So I invited myself and trained with them and learn everything about like the sport and everything that you have to do that's not about the sport as well. So they're great role models and mentors because they don't just, some athletes can just do it, but like both of them are so intelligent and they're good with their money and they have done a lot of stuff outside the sport, and that's why I think they're like the coolest guys to know.
Yeah, I mean, training with legends of your country in the sport you wanna you wanna break out in must be like pretty much the ideal setup.
Maybe just for people who don't know, Al is Alistair Brownlee, right?
Yeah, so Albin, Alistair Brownlee, who won London and Rio Olympics for triathlon, and then Johnny, who won, he had like bronze
Mm.
in Rio, no, bronze in London, silver in Rio, and then gold in the team triathlon in Tokyo. So he done like each of the colors. But for triathlon, like it was I wasn't a triathlete when they were like in their prime, but everyone knows how much like they transformed the sport, and even the current Olympic champion still is British as well, and he still says like they paved the way for triathlon in Britain, which I think is true because when I was cycling, like I didn't know any triathletes, but I knew who they were.
Hmm. And so Isle of Man, and it's famous for cycling, you said, and your brother started cycling before you. So was it because he had some, I think he had some success, or he had like a pretty long career in cycling, and that's what got you started, or how did it happen? How did you start cycle?
Yeah, so we started cycling, me and my brother, because he was injured playing football and we wanted to try something else. And the thing is, when I started, I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and he was 12 years old. And what that meant was that I was starting when a lot of other kids start, because that's the first age group. Whereas when my brother started cycling, he was a little bit older, and in the first race that he did international, he got like last in every race. And luckily, he's a strong character, and he stuck it out because that maybe I wouldn't have. And I used to maybe take the mick out of him because I would get the better results. But then as we got older, he was like getting better and better and better. And when he got to 18 and was one of the best in the world at the time, he was top 10 in the world championships and rode with a lot of names that you see now on the world tour. And yeah, even I, when I was junior, I remember my race in the Tour of the Basque Country, and I think I was like 30th place on one of the mountain stages, and everyone after the race was like, "Oh, a footballer won it." They were like, "Oh, it was won by a footballer." I just rode up this climb like at 17 or 18 years old, like as hard as I could with good power numbers, and I weighed nothing, and I was dropped by like 10 minutes, and then they were like, "Yeah, it's this footballer called Remco won it," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't think that guy's a footballer anymore if he's just won that race."
Yeah, and I just wanted to ch touch something about your brother because I saw you saying this in another podcast that you did, and you said that like as you just said he was seventh, I think in the World Championships,
Yeah.
and like it didn't happen for him. Whereas today we see lots of young people getting into the World Tour, younger and younger. You feel like it was at the wrong time. Uh,
Yeah, I think at the wrong time and just unfortunate for him. I think it was 2015, maybe Richmond World Championships, the one that Sagan won again. And yeah, when you look back at his results, my brother would have been, I think he was on the podium maybe in Junior Tour of Flanders and was British national champion, won the British Series, won the Junior Tour of Wales, seventh for the World Championships. I think eighth place was like Mark Hershey, who rides UAE.
mm,
But back then, it was just before Egan Bernal had gone and won the tour at a young age, and no one signed young riders. So he ended up moving to Italy with Team Great Britain, and they lived in the mountains in Italy, and like once a week a minibus would come and pick them up and take them to the shop to buy their groceries. They were like so isolated. and a lot of good athletes, it just didn't work for them. I think the plan didn't work, and a lot of athletes that had potential kind of dropped off, and they ended up moving back from Italy back to Manchester, and then after that, he then signed for Team Wiggins, and then Team Wiggins folded because of like money problems again. And I don't know, I kind of sensed the spark had gone out in him
Mm,
because we'd be riding, and he'd just want to turn around and go home on like a weekend. And
mm,
there'd be guys that have been in the office all week, and they join the group ride, and they love it. They can't stop smiling because they're out on their bike. And at that point, he wasn't like that, so
yeah,
it was a shame to see. But when you earn like no money from it, it's hard that many years into it. Like I think they got paid a couple £1,000 for the year when they were on the British cycling, whereas now if you paid him 500,000 to go out and do them training rides, I think he would have done them.
yeah. And you feel like yourself, how it unfolded for your brother, did it affect your relationship with cycling at the time? Because it must have been
Yeah,
kind of yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think the first thing he did was like his A levels and his cycling, and struggled with both and dropped out of his A levels because the races were in Europe and we were in the Isle of Man. So straight away, like one of the things I did was not do that. I committed to the cycling. So again, from such a young age, you're so like committed into some like a career. Um, and I think yeah, he was so not hard done by, but that it just shown how hard it was, and that it wasn't a given. And I actually thought that the results he got as a junior would have been so hard for me to match,
Mm,
and then he never even was making like good money from it. So it's like at that point, I know that you want to do something because you love it, but if you can't afford to live, then like what can you do about it? You have to find a way to make money.
yeah. And I don't know if it's too personal to ask, but is he has he how has he recovered from that period? Like, does he have any regrets about this time or?
No, I don't think. When he stopped cycling, he didn't touch his bike for probably 2 years. So,
Mm,
like, it's the right time when that happens. And he never has said, like, I want to do it again. I wish I'd done it, because we both agree that, like, although they get paid now really well and that you can go world tour from a young age, it's such a hard lifestyle. There's very little balance to it. It's hard to have a relationship with anyone, a girlfriend or your family. You're always away from home, you're always racing. And even the contracts are like 1 year at a time, at least for me in triathlon. I kind of pick and choose what I want to do. There's nowhere near as many race days. There's probably 5 times less race days. I might race 10 times in a year, and a cyclist might race 50 times in a year. And because in triathlon, they sell the race to amateurs, they're usually in nice locations with good hotels and stuff like that. Whereas when we were cycling in Belgium and Netherlands and stuff, you stay in the middle of nowhere, and you're in the quietest places because they need to shut the roads down. And it's very different, and it is a tough lifestyle. But I think like he learned a lot from it and got a lot from it. But I don't think that he lives in regret now, like some people may after something like that.
yeah.
And, but I think so. If we go back just a little, so when you were 12, you won that race in
Hmm.
London. So basically, you were in middle school, you take a flight to go to London, and then you win that race. When you came back to school the day after, how did you feel, and how did that kind of shape your life? Was it like a really key moment in your life, or did you just feel like
Yeah,
it was just another race, or?
I think a few people from the Isle of Man had won that age group, like under 12 national champion. It was like one where I think you'd go there and you'd try and win it for like the island because you know that it had been won before. And yeah, I remember it was a tough race, and it was raining, and I finished. And I remember like the lady, Dr. Tilbury, who's in charge of like all the youth cycling on the Isle of Man, was like congratulating me and stuff after, and obviously everyone else. And yeah, I felt like I'd really achieved a lot, but I think the older guys in the sport always told me like it means nothing. Um,
Hmm. That's
and
kind of
I
rough.
understand what they mean now, like being further into the sport, it means nothing in terms of like it won't get you any contracts, or it won't like secure your future. But I don't think I'd tell that to a 12-year-old now. I think I'd just let them
Yeah.
enjoy it and worry about it at another stage. But yeah, it was a cool thing to have done, and I didn't win like a lot, but I was always up there. Like in 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016, I was in the podium for the British Series, but it was I think it was like second, third, third, second or something. I was always up there in the series, and then when I was 16, I won the National Madison Championship, which is when you race on the indoor velodrome, and in Madison you do it with a partner. So me and my
Okay.
partner were both from the Isle of Man. While one rider's like racing on the inside of the circle, the other rider's like resting, and when you lap your partner, you swap over. So it's a very technical race, and a lot of the time, all the other 16-year-olds, they're trying to get on like the British Academy and they are quite well trained on the velodrome, but we don't have one on the Isle of Man. So it was quite cool that we actually both went there and we won the race and we don't have a velodrome. We just rode it like twice a year. But I think because we were good friends and obviously both like really wanted to prove ourselves, we won on there as well. And again, that's like a feeling that because when you win a cycling national championships, you get like a white jersey with a red, white, and blue stripe, or for different countries they give you a different jersey. And
Mhm.
unless you're like under 23 or senior, then you don't wear it the next year. But you still like out of all the races, you get to take something home. So when you win them, you think you're doing really well for yourself. But obviously, like it's just still only one race.
Is there like an Isle of Man mentality that's different from like the UK? I mean from not the UK, but London or other towns. Like, do you feel like
Yeah.
because like there's obviously Mark Cavendish that I think if you're if you know the Isle of Man and you're French and you love cycling, you know it because of Mark Cavendish. Uh, but I wonder that, yeah, because it looks like you're saying that you were really good at races from the under 12. Uh, is there like a point to prove when you come from this island, small island?
Yeah, I think the lady I mentioned, Dot Tilbury, is like the celebrity of the Isle of Man, and even like Mark Cavendish. If you watch the Mark Cavendish documentary, he's being interviewed by Dot. Like, it's amazing how many years she's done it, but there's literally hundreds of cyclists that do like a youth league that she hosts and has run, and it's not just her; it's obviously a team. But I think starting from there, then that's what gets you into the sport, and then the Isle of Man is quite a quiet place for most of the year. So cycling gives you something to do in the week and on the weekends. And when you're younger, you can ride with people who are older. Like even when I was 12, 13, 14, especially when I was 16, I was riding with, if Cavendish was over, I'd ride with him and Pete Kenyon and all these guys. And suddenly you're like riding with them and they're taking you through the corners faster than you've been and they're just making it look easy. And then you go away and suddenly it's like actually like I think I can beat these guys because I normally train with like some guy who wins stages of the Tour de France.
Yeah, some guy.
Yeah, I actually when I was in China last week, they didn't know where the Isle of Man was, but then when I said Mark Cavendish, they did. And they don't call him the Manx missile though because it doesn't translate in Chinese, so they call him the cruise missile. So they didn't
Cruise.
even know that Manx was like the Isle of Man. It's like the what the people from the Isle of Man are called, but they just call Mark Cavendish the cruise missile out there.
And did you start to, and I think we'll have to go back to China just after because that's one of the benefits that you have in your life currently is that you can pretty much travel to wherever there are like triathlon races. So when you were in that high school, middle school moment of your life, did you start to have the belief or did you start to think that you would be a professional athlete for a living? How did that go? Like that transition from just doing sports at a really high level and then becoming a professional in the sport?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I had the belief, and I think I came across as like cocky to some people or like
Hmm.
arrogant, but you have to be like that, and that's what the top guys are. So I was never worried, or I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to be like that because I was like, it doesn't matter because the top guys are like that. And then I think when I got to 17 at 18, which is like the point where I'd not done my A levels and I really didn't struggle in school, to be honest. It was a big surprise to a lot of the teachers that I didn't continue to A level because I did additional ones and I did some of my exams a year early because I was in the higher classes and stuff. But I said to myself, if your back's against the wall, then you can only go forward. So I was like, I've got one path and I'm going to be a pro cyclist. I don't need to go to school and I didn't want to have options because I thought like when the chips are down, you're just going to use them and you're going to find a way out. But funnily enough, I did find some sort of way of changing it and obviously moved into triathlon. But yeah, at the time I definitely thought that. And even like now, I think a big step for me was coming to Leeds and training with Al and John Brownlee because we all want to be professional and I would say sport is like a pyramid, a big triangle, and there's a lot of guys at the bottom level, and when you get slightly better, there's still like a lot of people doing it, and there's all these levels, less and less people make the step up. And I think the point where I've been at, maybe even this year, is like one of them really like places where like you either are gonna step towards being one of the best in the world, or you're gonna just stay at that level for 3 or 4 years and then have to make a decision to stop.
So you've been constantly improving since you started triathlon?
Yeah, one of my big things with triathlon was that I wanted to improve every year and have a good perspective of what that
Hmm.
took. I think a lot of people try and achieve their maximum performance every year, and I don't actually think that's the best way to shape a career. I think that you should almost try and do the minimum you can to get better, because then
Hmm.
every year after that you have room to improve and you can grow and you can get to the top. Whereas you see like 18-year-olds doing 35-hour training weeks. It's like, so in 10 years when you're 28 and you still want to improve, because professional triathletes now can be over 30, it's like
Hmm.
you're not going to train for 60 hours a week. You're going to like, you
Yeah.
just dull your ability to improve. So for me, it's always been a case of like improve, but don't do it everything as soon as you
Hmm.
can. And one of the things I said to my coach was like, there'll be a point in my career where I want to like step on the gas and it's only going to last maybe 2 or 3 years and, live like a monk and like,
Hmm.
not much socializing and eating perfectly and just like everything is about performance. But I'm like, why do it now? If I don't do that, I should still improve. And when it comes to needing to do that, I want to be able to. I don't want to be burnt out. I've almost done a whole career of cycling, but
Hmm.
from start to finish to know what I should and shouldn't do in triathlon. I think that's been a big help of mine.
That's interesting because you're saying so. How I understand it is that you're building up yourself and your performances to get ready for that moment where you're gonna push really hard and you're waiting for the sweet spot, like to know when's gonna be the moment where you feel okay, now if I push hard, I think I can handle it and I can perform really well. That's the strategy.
Yeah, I think like a good example of that is my swimming at the minute. So my swimming, if you weren't a swimmer when you were younger, then your swimming is usually your weakness because it's hard to learn a new skill. And swimming is more like golf than it is like running. It's very technical.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that what you can't do is like look at the best guys in the sport and copy their training and expect to perform like them because like I could start training like Pogacar, follow his training week. I ain't gonna be Pogacar next year. But if someone who's one level below him did something like that, maybe they have a chance. So the same thing happening with my swimming. It's like, yeah, I know it needs to be minutes quicker, but until I'm like a minute away or 90 seconds away, like I'm not gonna go all in because if I do and it doesn't work, my head is gonna fall off. I'm gonna have worked so hard and not got the rewards from it. So I think like you have to find that point where you know if you commit, you'll get to the place you need to be. And I think I was smart enough to realize I wasn't there, but it didn't mean I wasn't working towards it, but I was not trying to go from where I was to the very top. I was taking it one stage at a time. And now this year, I think I was on the podium maybe like 3 or 4 times, and I won my first pro race. And every time I was coming out the water, I was catching on the bike. And then when I caught the group, I'd recover a little bit and then I'd attack again and I'd start the run ahead of the group. And this is obviously a very inefficient way to race, but it was showing me success. And I think if I can swim with that group and not have to catch them on the bike, then obviously I have a bigger distance to attack and my run is strong and I usually run off the back of a really hard individual effort. So I think the sport, as soon as I get that swim to where it needs to be, I think that I honestly believe in myself to open enough doors to perform at a super high level. And I've always thought that. I've always thought when I can swim at the front, I'll win races. And over the years, like slowly more and more people have believed me. So I guess obviously my parents did at the start and now more and more people do. And the environment I'm in now, like people, even like Alistair will say like you're very competitive on the bike and run because we train together a lot. And he's just like you just need the swim there. And I think it's nearly there. And it's probably now over the next 2 years that I'll go all in on the swim and then probably further down the line all in on everything. You know, when I have the budget to like at the minute, we hardly keep the heating on at the house. We're saving the money. So these are the guys. Me and my brother laugh. I'm like, I have to beat guys that can keep the heating on all weekend, whereas we just sit cold with like extra blankets.
I love this quote.
Yeah, it's not that we're poor and triathlon is a hard sport. It's not open for every level because it's so expensive. But I think like when you put all your money into your equipment, your coach, your facilities, anything spare might get saved up for training camps. You live a lifestyle that's definitely not extravagant. You're not buying stuff you don't need. You're not putting the heating on when you don't need to. You're not like, we don't fill the cupboards. We get the food we need and then we move on and save. And my brother is now he has a normal job. He's very supportive of me because he's done what I do, and he'll always say like, if you need anything, like I can cover it. Obviously, like for me, I'm 24 years old now. It's not embarrassing because I work so hard, but it's what the sport has come to, and anyone who's a professional, like I wouldn't even say they're like rivals. I just think I have so much respect for the people above me because they've done what I'm doing now, and I know how hard it is.
Yeah. So triathlon, it's been what, 5 years? I just would like to know what did your cycling coach at that time thought about your move to go to cycling to triathlon? Like maybe he called you like a delusional guy, or how did that happen? Like what did people around you think about that move of kind of you're not giving up all the gains that you've made in cycling, but in a way like your biggest potential was probably in that sport and not in triathlon, because swimming, as you said, is really hard to pick up when you're much older. It's the kind of sport that you have to learn when you're young. So what did people around you think about that move like to go from cycling to triathlon?
Yeah, so when I swapped from cycling to triathlon, it actually kind of lined up with this team I was on as a cyclist failed.
Hmm.
So the whole thing kind of collapsed. So a lot of the riders either went into other teams or some of them actually stopped altogether. And I obviously went to triathlon. So the friction between the people I was working with at the time and when I stopped actually wasn't really that bad. I just think that that team was very good at supporting us financially when we were 17 and 18 years old. They had a large budget for us, which obviously is good, but I just think like emotionally maybe that what they weren't the best team at supporting us. And I always remember my old like team boss would always compare me to my brother and he'd actually like he would do things like I would get say I got 10th, he would say well done to the guy who got 15th and not to me, and then he'd tell me like, oh, you can do better than this, I know what your family's capable of. And And it's not a thing that I was never worried about like my brother. I never thought this is Nathan's fault. Like I'm annoyed that he was so good. It was just, I just think that he was trying to get something out of me by doing that and it wasn't working for me. If anything, it was just like looking back, it's just like made me not enjoy cycling because I'm like, that's not what it's about necessarily. If I think a happy rider races well, and I think when you're like putting them down all the time, saying they could do better. It's like I think sometimes when someone's 17 or 16 or 18, you need to tell them well done and say like, but we could build on it.
Yeah. Do you feel like the environment around triathlon is much better than in cycling, or is it just like a singular experience that you have with a coach that, yeah, didn't seem to to have great methods?
Yeah, I think the cycling is a weird sport, and when you start, it's an individual sport, and as you progress, it's a team sport, and you are required to play a role on that team, and the success of your team leader might influence your future contracts, and the setup of the team again might influence how well you do and what that leads to the following year. So I think in that respect, it's very difficult to plan your career unless you're the top 10% or top 20% and you're able to win, then you have to really work for the team and live off these short contracts. So in terms of that difference, triathlon's great, but like when I was cycling, like you just got bikes and kit and everything through the post, and you never had to do anything about it because the team would employ someone to do marketing and they would email the people and they'd sort it all. And then when you start triathlon, you realize that like that's not the same anymore. Like you have to be the guy that goes and does it. I mean, some people have agents, but not many, and if you do, they're going to take a cut. So you have to do your own marketing. You have to learn to be good on social media. You have to learn to deal with sponsors. And if a sponsor works with you, then you're going to have to constantly post. Whereas if they work with a team, like the team have their own accounts and they're constantly posting and they keep the sponsors happy. So I think on the business side of things, it's easier to be a cyclist and sign into a 1 year or 2 or 3 year contract. But on the actual racing and the dynamics of your career, I think triathlon is much nicer. I think that you can live a happy triathlete life. It's not, I have friends who are world tour and like they see their girlfriend in the bus at the start of the stage for like 5 minutes and then the stage is 180 kilometers long and the girlfriend has to go in like some little car to the next place and they see them again for 5 minutes. Then it's like team talks and stuff. But triathlon's the opposite. Like I met my girlfriend through triathlon at a race and I actually got given accommodation by the race organizer and flew my brother out because it was like £70 Ryanair, which is cheap European flights. And I already had the hire car and the free accommodation. We were staying in this like amazing hotel with like beaches and pools. And he was like, "We didn't do this when we were cycling." And I was like, "Yeah, this is the different part. This is like the nice part."
So maybe now is a good moment to talk about what's your daily life, what your daily life looks like as a professional triathlete. So I think pretty much I checked your PTO ranking. I'm not sure what's the accuracy of that, but you've been pretty much steady like 2021, 2022, 2023. And this
Uh-huh.
year there has been quite a big improvement. I think I checked today and you were like 80 in the ranking. So that's I think you gained like 100 spots. So did your life change in the last 3 years compared to this year in terms of how brands are treating you, how well you're being received, and how's the pay and these kind of things? Or it's kind of the same thing and all the triathletes that are let's say like under top 50, they have the kind of same lifestyle and how does that lifestyle looks like?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's funny is like I've had these good results this year, but nothing in my training has changed. And this is something I say to people. I'm like, I haven't changed anything. That's the key point. That's why it's worked because I've been building and I've done the consistency. And I didn't think after 1 year it's not working. I need to change it. I need to do more or anything like this. I was like, I've been around enough high performers in the sport to know that I'm in the ballpark and I just need
Mhm.
to keep improving slowly. And obviously this year it kind of came into fruition. But last year I had an injury, which does affect it a little bit. If you've seen on the PTO, my run performance dropped. I was really struggling to actually run last year.
Hmm.
So if that hadn't happened, then there might have been a steadier progression. But now that I've kind of reached the top 100, I actually think for me, it's made me more confident. And then working with brands and things like that, I'm a little bit more confident to be like, oh, I think you should pay me, like I deserve to be paid, or I deserve like this level of support. Again, just through being a little bit more, you have more to give them because when you do what I do, which is approach brands at the end of the year, you really do reflect on what you've done and what you've achieved and you'll say your reach on social media, you'll tell them your results and stuff like that. So when I'm racing in the year and when I'm posting content and some of it's going like viral or what we would say similar to viral,
Hmm.
it's like in my head, I'm like, this is great because I can add all this into my approach to sponsors at the end of the year. So it's kind of like there's definitely two avenues to improve on, like one side being physical performance and then the other side being like sustainability of turning yourself into a brand that then can work with partners and earn money and earn income and actually make it a career because the mistake is that when you turn professional, like everything then just works out, but it's so far from it. It's like almost the easy part and the hardest part is the years to come.
And how much of it is it you reaching out to brands and brands reaching out to you? Like, how much effort is there like behind a sponsor and these kind of things? Like, because I bet it takes time and you're already training, and then at the end of the day, you have to do emails, you have to do calls. What is it like?
Yeah, I think I was talking to someone about this today actually on our group ride. I was saying like he wanted results to kind of speak for him and I said like the people I'm approached probably it's probably 50-50 between the brands approaching me and me approaching brands.
Hmm.
And I'm like they don't approach me because they see my name on a results sheet. It's because they've seen a reel or something that has gone on their explore page.
Yeah.
So I'm like, my results give me credibility as a person to follow on Instagram and someone to give advice, but they don't actually get me my sponsors. It's probably more like the content and being active on social media that connects you with these sponsors because from their side, I understand it. It's gone are the days where people read through a magazine and they look at what trainers the guy at the front's wearing
Hmm.
and the influencers I actually find the influencers hard to compete with. They're probably harder to compete with than the guys I'm racing against because on the racing side of things, we're all close, we all train a lot, but like everyone does similar things. But when you're trying to also be an influencer or a content creator, I'm not one and I train 30 hours a week and I don't want to film my sessions, not because I'm private, but because I'm there to train and my focus is on my session. And then
Hmm.
suddenly you have to get a camera, get different angles, capture it, and like it's a hard balance. And I say to people like it's no easier than doing another job. It doesn't come easy. I'm like, I'm not there's sometimes, yeah, people get followed if they're just like attractive or whatever. I'm like, no, this is, I don't fall into that trap. I'm just there. I need to put out good content. I need people to rate it. I need people to engage with it. And yeah, having to build that like side of things on top of the race performance is definitely something that's difficult, but I feel like I'm doing it, and sometimes it's easy to be critical and self-critical. You guys probably know yourself with content stuff like that. You put something out, you work really hard on it, it doesn't go that well, but you just have to be able to kind of like not let that get to you the same way a bad performance in the race might come after a good training block. It's just part of it, and as a whole, you just have to improve like year on year, and that's going to be the thing that takes me now from where I'm at, which is like a level that I don't think is entirely unique. There's a lot of people that are on a similar level, but I would always back myself right now to say I can improve, which is a thing that's hard for a lot of people. Like, can you get to the top? What do you need to do? For me, it's like if I improve my swim, like I'll be there. And I've
Hmm.
improved my swim over every other year. I've not plateaued. So I'm a bit like, I think I can do it. But you need a lot of self-belief because it's such a hard work.
And just what did you tell him to that guy on the group ride in the end? Did you tell him to create an Instagram account or to focus on the results?
Yeah, well, he does short course, which I said if you're on federation funding, you'll get away with it. But I said like I still think that it's super important, even if you're not like trying to be an influencer, just some content and a little bit of flow. So then if someone sees your name, they can Instagram you because like everyone does it. I do it. If I see a result and there's a name that I don't know the look of, I search them on Instagram because I just want to see a little bit like what do they look like? How old are they? Like, are they going to be
Mhm.
someone to watch out for in the future? And then if they perform well, like I'll probably follow them because I'm like, it's cool to follow people that perform well, you know?
I guess that there's also been a shift in how people consume sport in a way. Like I feel like you want to be connected a bit with the people you're following. And I understand that like you're an athlete before being a content creator or an influencer. But yeah, people they love to like it, they would love to maybe follow your journey starting from your Instagram. And like if I reformulate, they would see you first on Instagram. They would say, "Oh, I like Will. I like
Yeah,
this guy." They are not too much into triathlon, but it's an entry door, you know. So I feel
yeah,
like it's a game you have to play. It's not only financially, but I feel like it's also how people want to connect with the athletes and sport. Like for example, I feel with F1, the documentary that they did on Netflix. Now every pilot on the grid is a star, you know. The people
yeah,
they would love Tsunoda, but it's not the best. Like he's not winning races, but it's just that Netflix they gave a tiny bit of the the background life, and
yeah.
it gives authenticity to these guys, and people loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this is something that I say to people when they talk about social media and getting yourself out there. And I say, like, whatever you do, you have to try your best to get your personality onto your social media. And although that's hard and it feels like when you're talking into the camera and stuff, it's not natural, but people are going to want to follow your journey when they know you. And like one of the stories I'd say is if you have someone in the gym and they like are squatting and they hit a PB, but you've never spoke to them in your life, like you probably wouldn't really say congratulations, even if like you could tell they had a PB, they were maybe like celebrating. You wouldn't know to speak to them, but if you'd had like a couple conversations with them, even if they were only a little bit, and you felt like you knew the person, then when they achieved something, you would be like, "Oh, congratulations!" Like, "Oh, you're killing it!" Like, and I think the same thing has to happen with social media. Some people just post like still images and post like very little when they perform well and stuff like that, and it works to some extent. But I think if you ever want to build like an engaged following, I think you need to try your best to put some sort of personality on there. And even if not everyone likes it, then at least the people that do are going to be like actually supportive and they know you and they can get along with your journey. Whereas if you don't ever post any personality, then no one's going to be that invested into you.
Yeah, and I feel as well like not every personality has can find its fan base. You know, it's not only the ones that are super uh uh like uh extra. No, I
Wait,
don't. I lost the
it's
word.
almost like performance comes second. That's what you mean, maybe?
No. It's not
Yeah, no,
only
I
the
know what you
extroverts.
mean. It's not if you're extravagant or like
Yeah,
outgoing.
that's what I meant. Yeah,
There's
you
like
can be.
a Yeah, there's like a perfect type of person that you would see on the internet, and I think it is a bad idea to think you have to be like that to get a following, because there is people for everyone, and I think as again, as long as you just push content out, and even like I say it to people, and I think, oh, sometimes even I don't do it because I've like maybe I don't want to record a video because I think, oh, it just feels a bit like. I don't know if you guys know the word cringe, which is like just
Yeah,
like when you make some stuff and you're like, ah, but But at the end of the day, I'm like, if I post nothing, like no one's gonna follow me and no one's gonna know anything. The one thing that happens if I look at like analytics is like some posts do well and some don't, but the only time I'll get nothing is when I post nothing, so I may as well like I need to try my best to like be consistent and post something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can still lose followers. That happened to us a few times, so
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, me
it
and
can be
my partner
negative
both
too.
have that.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a big thing with Reels. Like if you've got followers through Reels, then I don't know, sometimes maybe people tap it by accident, or sometimes they think, well, why do I actually follow this person now that they've started posting more?
Yeah.
And then there must be like accounts that get shut down and stuff. But it's it is something that if you don't post it all, your followers do go slowly down. But if you post it a little bit, then I think that the odd video will get like good engagement and stuff like that. But for me, it's important that I perform well because then I feel like I can tell people like give them advice and that it's
Mhm.
coming from a credible source. Especially, I don't think a lot of people who follow me know that like I spend pretty much every day with like Olympic champions, not just Alistair and Johnny. There's also other people in the squad who've been to the Olympics. Beth Potter won two bronze medals this year, and the coaches as well who taught them are the same people that were around. So I'm like, I'm not like the stuff I know and the stuff I've discovered through the sport. It's like I'm not just pulling it out of anywhere. Like I'm surrounded by good people. I try my best to like pass that on because when I was at a less level, like a lower level than I am now, it was always so many different sources of information. It was hard to know who to believe, but
Mm.
I think now I try and like do my best to be pretty straightforward with it.
Yeah, but I mean, if your advices comes from the experience of guys who went to the Olympics and won medals there, that's pretty legit. So maybe you could tell
Yeah.
us what it's like to be training with this person, because that's something that really makes you different from a lot of triathletes. Because I feel that many professional triathletes just train with other professional triathletes, but not necessarily people that have been to the Olympics and stuff. That's a pretty unique situation that you have. So how is it like to be training with them?
Yeah, I think training with the people at the highest level of the sport actually, they don't tell you things that you don't know. They just cut out all the rubbish and they tell you what does and doesn't work. And it's actually just more simple than you think. And that's what helps is they're like, don't overthink it. Like, this is how you do it. And this is like what you should focus on. And again, it's just, it is simple. It's like focusing on being things that are achievable and consistent. But I think the biggest thing with these type of people is like their mindset when it comes to racing and like the performance of a race. I think that's something that I've learned is like they are like killer in races. It seems, especially Alistair himself being like the champion of so many races, his mindset is crazy. I've like trained with him and thought like, ah, I'm pretty similar and we've done like I always remember we did open water swim sessions and he's not the fastest sprinter. He's really actually very like in the middle, you know, just so strong in their middle efforts. So sometimes we'd do some sprints and stuff and I'd be like next to him and then we did a race together in Xterra UK, which was like a mountain bike triathlon for both of us. It wasn't a target, it was just for fun, but it was still a professional off-road triathlon and I swear when that horn went off, like the guy was twice as fast as I've ever seen him, and it's just like his when we race, he's just different. He just like and then on the bike he was like 5 minutes faster and he was injured at the time from a running injury, hadn't been running, and he was like again like minutes faster. And when he did some races at the back end of last year, his biggest session going into the race was like 3 by 10 minutes, steady fast. And he went to these races. I think he got like in one of them he was second, and it was like Yuri Kulin who beat him, who eventually had a breakthrough year this year. And Alistair ran like a really competitive time. And it's the first time he's ran more than like 10 minutes of effort. I'm like, this guy just when he goes into a race, he's just like he's just on another level. And then everyone will tell me he's changed, he's mellow now. You should have seen him like when he did London and Rio. And I'm like, I can't even imagine what that's like. But it's just that like I think the thing with them, the everyone who's in these races trains hard. They train 28 hours, 25 hours, 30 hours. It doesn't matter. Like when you get to the start line, then I think like you have to want it and you have to be prepared to do mentally what other people aren't going to do. Um, and like for example, the race where Johnny collapsed and Alistair helped him over the finish line, I always say to Johnny like that's the coolest race because you went harder than like your mind and your body would let you. You know, everyone like gets to that point where they're like, I'm gonna slow down now because this is uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
that's never at the point of like collapse really. And then I'm like, well, you collapse. So you clearly your mind is stronger than your body, which is pretty unusual, and that must be what makes you a champion. But he doesn't say it like that. He'll laugh it off and he'll say, I regret that because I think it gave him some issues with thermoregulation further down the line, but it's still like a cool thing to be with people where their mindset is like on another level.
But that's kind of interesting, the whole mental question, because like imagine like in a half triathlon, if you really push it, like how many minutes you could save, you think, like, or win rather? Like, is there really a big difference in performance when it comes down to how far you're willing to push? Or in a way, the kind of performance that you're going to have on that race is already decided before you start?
I think one of the biggest examples as to how much mindset affects performance is if you think if you're running with a friend and like the friend is running faster than you or competitor, if you're with a rival and they're running faster than you, how much it hurts. But if it's the other way around and you're going faster than them and you're the one issuing the pain, then it doesn't hurt. It feels like you just want to keep going and you want to keep making them suffer more. But on paper, like the heart rate might be the same, the lactate might be the same, the effort, the pace might be the same, but like that mindset's so different when you're the one that's in control. So like for me now this year, when I've been able to chase a podium, it's like I'm running harder than I have in the past, but it feels easier because I'm doing it for a podium, whereas in the past I've done it for 20th place. And I
Hmm.
think that that's like a key thing in sport is like when you think about mindset like that, then it's like, oh, well, this clearly does have a big influence on me, like whether I want to be there or not. And another thing with that is like I used to train, I would say too hard, and I would leave some of my best efforts in training and not in a race. I think this year I've actually trained so consistent and the hard work has been about oh I don't want to like do another swim, I've already done five, I don't want to do another hour on the bike, I've already done a couple, but you push yourself, you do it a bit more. But I actually think when you're pushing like your body as hard as it can go, like that's not something you should do in training. Like you should save that for race day because you can't do it very often, and if you do you're just going to
Hmm.
reduce your ability to do it as well. And that like training benefit again, that's what I've seen with these Olympians I train with. Like it's very, very rare that they push their body as hard as they can. You'd think like these guys are crazy, they must train so hard, they must collapse after every session. It's like it's not like that. They'll collapse after the race, and the person who's like 20th or 30th in the race might be the person who's collapsed after every session. But that's like
Mm.
ruined their consistency, it's ruined their like mentality because suddenly when you're in a race and it's harder than you thought it was going to be, you don't want to be there because you think like how horrible this place is that you've gone before. And I think like that's the thing that is underestimated in like performance endurance sport, especially like maybe something like weightlifting is different where you either do it or you don't. But with ours, like you have hours to think about how much it hurts and whether you want to be there or not. So I think you really have to be ready to do that on race day.
Hmm.
It's really interesting because I feel there's this kind of narrative that you need to train harder than than you compete because like this competition is easier and then you can push but you feel that like you've done much harder things. But what you're saying is that it's so hard to push yourself to the limit that you don't have 10 jokers a year, so you should keep them for races. I feel like we hear too much of the other narrative.
Yeah, that's the point I make. Yeah, and that's something I think that has helped me this year is that I haven't pushed it. I think I listened to one podcast like in the winter the year before, and there was track runners talking about it, and they were saying like that they never pushed to that extent. I think they said they did it once every 7 weeks, and if it wasn't a race, it would be a very special workout. And I think I just thought like it's so true. Like if you do it in training, like when we race like a half Ironman or something, the coach will always say, you know, for like at least a few days, like you need to be really careful of your like recovery and your performance, and like you can't just start training hard the next day and stuff, even if you feel like it. So like that makes sense if you've gone to that place, but sometimes people might do that on a weekday, on a Wednesday, and then on the Thursday they're training hard again, and then on the weekend they're training hard again, and I think like this can be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And is it something you learned with for example, Alistair and Johnny, and that they gave you this perspective, or have you ever always had it through your other coaches?
I think with Alistair and Johnny, they haven't had to say it to realize it. I think I just see when they race that they're different, and I see when they train that, like when they train, they seem beatable, and when they race, they seem unbeatable. And I've trained against guys that seem unbeatable, and I've raced them, and they've gotten worse. They're not as good, and I'm like, well, I think I know which way around is the best way to do it now, and I think that you have to train. And as I said before, I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm just saying your hard work is that like giving yourself to the sport, and the hard work is more about doing the sessions you don't want to do, and turning up every day, and it's riding and it's snowing and you're still going to do your 4 hours. That's where the hard work is, and that's the thing that makes you like a champion because you're consistent. It's not like there's a guy on YouTube, he always has this thing like go one more, like a saying go
Yeah.
one more. Well, I'm like if you train properly, like don't go one more, have two in the tank or have one left is my saying because you will affect your next day, you will affect your week, you will affect your month, you'll affect your season if you do go one more. And I think like people might listen and be like, no, I think that it is important and I don't agree with that, but I think I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying save it for races, and maybe if you're not racing, have the odd period where you will go to that extent. But to think that doing that every day is what like Olympic champions do, it's just not. They're careful and they're precise with their training. They'll do the right amount of reps and they'll be ready for the next day. They'll be ready for the next week. And only at the very end of certain training blocks and certain training cycles are they go into that place. And most of the time, you just use a race to do it. You don't have to do it in training.
And so you said like the hard work is basically doing the workouts when you don't want to do it, when it's cold outside, you have to do it inside the trainer, it's super hot, super inconvenient, your saddle hurts and everything. And these kind of moments, like, what is the thing that makes you go through these trainings? Like, what is the motivation behind it? What's the purpose you have
I
for?
think one of the things that is like important to know is if you want to be like super successful, then motivation isn't going to be what you rely on. You have to just rely on discipline. And I think if you have an understanding, I think the base of your performance has to be an understanding of what it takes. And I think if you know what it takes and you're confident that you can do it, then it's like you will get it done because you know that's what's required of you. Whereas if you're not like entirely invested into the process and you think like, so say, I know this morning I need to go out and do 4 hours because like on the bike, it's not because of the short term benefits to it. It's because like over the weeks and months of winter, I'm like it needs to be done, and like that's what gets me out of bed is like I need to do it because I won't be where I am or where I was or where I want to be next year if I don't. And it's not that I'm like I don't get up and smile and like love every minute of the ride. Like sometimes that does happen, but the majority of the time I'm doing it because I'm disciplined. And we were talking, me and my brother, about scoring a 180 on the darts, and he
Mhm.
scored a 180. He plays like a little bit of darts, not like just for fun. And he said he scored a 180, and he was like ecstatic, and like it was like dead fun. And he did it at a bar with one of his friends. And I was like, if I scored a 180, like it wouldn't matter to me. I wouldn't be happy. And it's because if I did it, I would just think it's easy. I was like, the thing that makes it rewarding is that you've tried all the like so often to get there and you've worked so hard for it. Like if I played every day and for months and months and months I couldn't get it and then I got it, like then
Mm.
I would be ecstatic. But because I haven't worked for it, if I just went and did it, I'd say it wasn't that hard and that it wasn't that fulfilling. So I think it's the same thing. Again, like
Mm.
a 180 or a nine data or any sort of high performance in any sport, the thing that makes it rewarding is how hard it was to get. And I think that's what motivates me to keep working hard because like again, if I achieve something easily, like it's not going to be fulfilling.
And that's actually, I think, something that a lot of amateurs can relate to. And that's how I felt too when I completed like some races. It's like the amount of joy you feel at the finish line is proportional to how hard you train for it. And
Yeah.
if you sign up to a race and you don't train and you actually end up with a good result, you'll feel good about it, but you will never feel as ecstatic and as happy as you would if you had trained really hard for it and you knew that it's been 6 months that you were working
Yeah, exactly.
your ass off for it. Yeah,
This is what I say when people tell me, oh, I've signed up for Ironman or a 70.3. I'm like hard for it because you'll enjoy it more and it'll be worth it.
exactly.
I'm like, don't do the bare minimum because like you may finish it, but it's not going to be fulfilling. I'm like, the reason you like get emotional over the finish line is because you got up and ran it before work at 6 a.m. in the rain. It's not because of what you did on that day. The day is like the celebration. The race is won like 6 months before, or the performance is made like in them hard moments in training, like a long time before the day of the race.
And the question I was getting to before is like I'd like to know what's your goal in triathlon? Like, do you have a vision for what you would like to achieve in that sport?
Yeah, I think like the sport's changed so much since I started and the times that I do now probably would have been like some of the best in the world
Yeah.
back when I started 5 years ago. So the sport moves and new brands come in and out and it's great to see because it's growing. So for me, it's always to be competitive. I just want to be competitive on the highest level and like obviously win races and win. Everyone will be like, oh, I want to win Kona, I want to win. Now they'll say I want to win T100 and things like this. And I think that's definitely something that like I wouldn't say I don't want to do it, but I would say right now what I've done is I've been at this second tier or third tier in triathlon, second tier, and for a few years I wasn't competitive, and now I feel competitive. I'm turning up to races to try and win them.
Mhm.
And I think what will happen is over the next 2 or 3 years, I'll move into the top level of the sport, but I won't be competitive. And then after that, I want to be competitive. I want to turn up to the top level of the sport to try and win the races. And I think that will be important because, like now, training's easier now because when I was training for 30th, it had to be done, but it wasn't very enjoyable because I thought like this is a lot of work just to get no prize money, have no recognition, and no one even think that it's a good result, but it has to be done. And now it's like, oh, this will be the first winter where I'm training to win, and that's like so much easier. So for anyone who's not at that level yet where they are training to win, I'm like, I understand and I've been there, and I think that you have to see them years through before you get to the years that I'm kind of approaching now. But yeah, I think again, just a steady improvement. Like as long as I'm better than the year before, like I'm heading in the right direction.
Looks like you really have a long-term vision of your level, and it's crazy for me because I when I hear you say that, I'm like, how can he work so hard and know at the same time that the best moments will come only in 5 years?
Yeah, I think there's that saying that Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. And that's like the thing that's been hard in my career, especially swimming. I think within the first 6 months, I realized this is going to be a 10-year project. This just isn't as easy as I expected it to be, but it's like, yeah, I wake up, I have to go swimming. I used to go earlier in the morning when I was working more at sort of 5 a.m. and I had to do it and I had to go there and swim 3K, 4K, 5K that day so that in 10 years' time I can be a champion in the sport. And it is a crazy thing that now I look back on it and I think that was like I'm proud of myself for them days because now obviously I'm getting closer. It's a little bit easier to do, but it's something that like unless you're a child like a project like a I don't know what they call it, a child prodigy or something when you are
Hmm.
like young and you are gonna be the best in the world, then um you're gonna like struggle to you're gonna struggle to you're going to struggle to make it if you don't have the perspective because you're going to get to some point and it's going to feel like it's not giving you enough, but it's just about seeing that through.
Yeah.
And like in your daily life, are you a patient guy? Because it looks to me that it requires a fair bit of patience to have that mindset.
Yeah, I think that you need to be patient. I think it helps that like my family are there for me and I have a family home. I don't have kids. I haven't got like a girlfriend or a partner that depends on me or anything like that. And I know that's a fortunate position to be in that like although I'm risking it, I'm staying in a position where I'm not earning much money. I'm working very hard. And if I gave it up, I'd have very little to show for it, like financially, that I have like a support around me to let me do that. But I think like again, if you're someone that's trying to do the same thing. Like, don't leave your job too soon. Like, just keep getting a little bit better each year. Like, you need to wait till you go all in that you know that it's possible. And I'm like, that's what I've done. I've been like, I'm gonna wait. I'm like, trust me. And obviously, at the start, I was probably your parents like will always believe in you, whatever you do. So I think if you exclude them, I was probably the only person who thought like, I think I can do that. I think I can go to the top of this sport, and I think now it's nice that other people are starting to like see the vision that I had like when I was 17 or 18 and swapped sports and went back to square one. It was a huge step back, but now it's like it's starting to be it was always worth it, but it's starting to show to everyone else now that it's in the right direction.
Do you sometimes like you look at high school friends or people that were in the same school as you, and you see them maybe, I don't know, having working in finance or maybe I don't know if already they would have a child or do you have sometime that moment that brings you a bit of stress or you're like, okay, I'm taking a risk. I know that I could go an easier route, but does that happen to you sometimes?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think that I mean the house thing maybe like not having a house deposit or not having like savings is like a hard thing, especially as you get older. But I seen a quote on about someone said something like at the age of 45 you'd give up everything you have to go back to 25 with the opportunities. And I think that's like go back with nothing to that age. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
for me, it's like that's the type of thing. Like, although I have nothing, I have opportunity, which is like you can't buy it and it's everything.
And you feel like if you were to that that's a mean question, but if you had a major injury next year that would crush a bit your career, would you be devastated or would you feel like, okay, there's other things that I would like to do in life. There are other plans, there are other objectives that I have.
I think I think I could apply myself to other areas in life. Like I try not to make everything about it because I think when you're like that emotionally invested, as you say, when you get injured or things don't work out, like it's a hard place to be in. And there's a lot of athletes that that's happened to. So for me, like I said, I didn't struggle in school, and when you do sport, there is opportunities taken away from you, and I don't forget them opportunities. I've sacrificed a lot of things in my life to do what I do, and it's every decision I make every day is all to do with my sport, and I think that like that is something that like there's pros and cons to it. It's not just all pros. So if like anything happened, obviously I'd have to flip everything on its head and take the benefits of living a different lifestyle with me and I think that it's taught me a lot, and I could take them lessons into other areas of life. So it wouldn't really feel like I wouldn't feel lost without it, but I obviously don't want it to go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
We have a question from the previous guest. It was a podcast we recorded last week with Jack Burke. Do you know who that guy is? Have you ever heard about him? Jack Burke, a
No,
Canadian. So he's pretty much been trying to reach the world tour level for like 14 years. He started cycling at 14 years old. He's now like 29,
uh-huh.
and he's had like so many crazy setbacks. And this a few weeks ago, he just set the KOM for the Alpe d'Huez, which is
Oh
the
yeah, I do know this guy. Yeah, I've seen
yeah.
him.
Now
I
you
was
know
talking
that.
about him today.
Oh, really? And so we
Yeah,
interviewed
I didn't
him.
know his name. I didn't know his name.
Yeah, so a really good guy, and he's known for kind of his work ethics of working really hard for that objective. And so his question to you is kind of related to that. So it goes like, if someone was to say you were just lucky or talented, can you tell us a story to show us how hard you worked for it? And he added a small instruction to that. Don't be humble.
I think the thing with luck and talent and hard work is I think if you're gonna say that someone was lucky to be talented, then you could also say that someone else was lucky to be hardworking and driven. Like that mindset, like may have been influenced by their environment or by their genetics, but are they just as lucky to have that mindset? And I think you need to be someone that has an element of both. If you want to be genuinely the top in the world, I think that you need talent and some luck, and you also need to be gifted with the ability to work hard and push yourself. So I think that yeah, there's times I obviously like every athlete can tell you like how hard they've worked and how much they've put into it and things like that and reasons why it's not worked. But I think that there's no one in sport at the level I'm at that I know who is just on talent alone and if they were talented, they've combined it with hard work and I know people that are the opposite. They have no talent. They work super hard and it's not worked out for them. And then I know people that are talented, but they just don't work hard. They've not got that in them. So I'm like, as much as it's a blessing to be talented, like if you've not got that hard work in you, like it's all for nothing. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So it does is that type of theory of what's worse or better or harder or easier has never really like been something that I've cared too much about.
Yeah. Well, it was not the expected answer, but it's a very valid one. But I think there is kind of this thing there, like amateurs, I think, relate to that a lot. They kind of like to hear stories of athletes working hard just because it inspires them to work harder than they are. And they are,
Yeah.
most of them, really far away from, like overtraining and these kind of things. So that's why we
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to hear it. But the reality of high
Yeah,
professional sports is
I've
that everyone's already working so hard. Most of them are most like overtraining than undertraining, so that's not really the problem usually.
Yeah, even now, like if I don't train twice a day, I feel like I'm not trained enough. And it's crazy that that's the level my life's gotten to, and 3 times a day is like the consistency.
Hmm.
And it's something that, like, if I look back at it, I'd be like, that's crazy. But it didn't go from there to here. There was a load of steps in between, and it's built to that. And it's just my perspective of what it takes has gotten bigger. And now, as I say, I train maybe tw 2 or 3 times a day on a Monday and a Friday, and then 3 times a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and twice a day on a Saturday and Sunday, or 3 times a day on a Saturday now because I swim as well. So it's just like it's just higher and higher and higher. And I think especially in triathlon, because if your legs are tired, then you just go to the pool and make your arms tired. There's no excuse.
And do you have time to have a life like outside of the sport?
I think it got to me a little bit last year that I was sacrificing life outside of sport, especially like relationships and things like that. I was in a when I would see someone or like a girl, then I would be like it just wouldn't work with what I was trying to do. And I was like, this is just another sacrifice, because you're already giving it so much. But then like this year I was fortunate enough for to meet my girlfriend at a race, and now we actually like I'm lucky that I feel like I have good balance in my life because we can do sessions together or we can travel to races together. And even this year we went to like 10 different countries together, and it wasn't none of them were on holiday, they were just part of the racing. And I think that before that I would have said yes, like there's like difficult areas in my life because of the sport, but now I feel balanced. I have a supportive family and supportive friends, especially when my performances are good, because they would obviously support me regardless. But I think that it helps me justify like the sacrifices. They might make sacrifices, and it helps me justify them to them people if they've made sacrifices if I perform well. And then yeah, and I have a really good relationship now as well, which helps me balance life away from sport and having something else to do. But yeah, if your girlfriend doesn't want to go out and ride 4 hours on a Sunday morning, then she probably wants you to go for lunch for 3 hours when you get back, when in reality you just want to get back into bed.
Yeah.
Mm.
So now it's nice that I'm in a relationship where we'll both go and ride, and even if we don't ride together, we can just come back, eat a load of food, and then go to bed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just
Oh,
related to that. If there is
yeah.
like anyone listening to the podcast who has aspirations to become a professional in any sports, would you recommend that person to find a partner doing that same sport, or you're not too sure
I
about
think
that
it's
advice yet?
You have to, yeah. I think if you want to be professional, the partner has to be really, really supportive, especially if it doesn't bring you much income. Because I know professional cyclists who are on big contracts, and what they can do is their partner doesn't have to work because it
Mhm.
is a year-round job to help them, and there was a Remco video of like what he eats in a day, and his partner like cooked him lunch and dinner, and I don't know if she works or not. I don't want to say she doesn't, but
Yeah.
if if he earns enough money to pay for both of them, then I think it does work. But I'm like, if you hardly earn enough money for yourself, like you're gonna really struggle to have a career that's like a partner that's tolerable of your career. And if you do whatever they're interested in, you've got to support that as well because it can't just be one way for your own dreams.
Yeah.
And you feel like it gives you does it have a positive impact when you're in a relationship compared when you're not? Like, does it give you more emotional stability or, I don't know, a sense of just having someone to come back at the end of the day when it's been hard and to also change your mind and yeah, having someone to share
Yeah,
the journey with.
yeah, I think so. I mean, my partner, she is like it was her first year as a professional this year, so like any advice like that I have, I try and help her with, and she has a really nice family and stuff, and I go and visit her, and they're very supportive again of me. And sometimes at races, I remember one of our first ones when we were seeing each other, but she was ill and then I was still able to race. So then I had a good result. It was one of the first times I'd been on the podium, and she really got a lot from that race. And I think if it was the other way around, it would have been the same for me too, where even if I had my own disappointment, like I'd be proud as like we're almost like a team. And then you obviously, yeah, you have to deal with each other's troubles, but the wins in sport are quite small. So if there's two of you, it doubles your chances of having that enjoyment.
Yeah, because people say usually, no, I don't have time for a girlfriend. I need to focus. But I wonder how much it could enhance the performance uh, if you were yeah having someone in your
Yeah,
life
I
to
think
share it with.
I guess it depends what you're like. If you're someone that maybe, I don't know, when I'm younger, when I'd get to the end of the year, like I don't go out partying, so I don't have many like chances to meet any girls or something. So I might be like, oh, I want to go partying more just so I can potentially meet people and get to socialize and things like that. Whereas if you're in like a nice stable relationship, again, like realistically for your recovery and stuff, like it's better to watch a movie on the sofa with a duvet at night rather than go out to partying at the bars. And if a girlfriend is what lets you do that, then that's perfect, isn't it? That's when it's a benefit. But It's it's one of the, it has pros and cons, but at the minute
Yeah.
I just but for me, I've been very fortunate to find someone that genuinely supports what I do and I genuinely support what she does and we do the same thing and you could say it's by chance, but then we met at a race. I'm like, it's not like by complete coincidence. We do the same thing because we met doing the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess there's pros and cons. If you're listening and you're single, I don't think you need to hunt out a girlfriend in your sport. Like if it comes, it'll come.
But we've been talking about a lot already. Isle of
Yeah.
Man, girlfriend, your brother, Brownlee Brothers, uh, and many other questions. Is there one big thing we could have missed?
No, I don't think so. I think that like as we've spoken about, it's came back to like my life is just consistent, trying to improve consistently. And I think one of the things maybe that people don't think about is like right now it's a long way away from the racing season, next summer for a lot of people. But my mindset right now is not to train for next year's racing season. I'm training for the next training block. Like I know that in January I have to put in a good block, and then in February, March it has to be even better at the start of the season. So my mindset right now is like I need to get fit ready for this next block, and then when I do that next one, I need to get fit for the pre-season block, and then once I've done that, then I can think about races. I
Mhm.
think that's a really good way to think about winter training rather than being like, I'm 6 months away from my next race. How is going out for a 30-minute run going to help me? It's like, yeah, if you do that 30-minute run now in the next block, that can be 45 minutes. And in the block after that, that can be an hour with some intervals. But you can't go from nothing to an hour with some intervals. Otherwise, you won't adapt into it.
Yeah, it looks to me like you have different set of timelines in your head. You would have the long-term plan when you know when you're gonna go all in. Then you have maybe the 1 or 2 year plan, the season plan, and then what you just said, preparing for the next block and then the next block, and I guess it feels pretty like hearing you talk. I'm very confident that you're on the right track in a way. I don't know if it makes sense, but it looks
Yeah.
really like it looks like it's really mature, I would say. Um, like you seem to be quite stable with, and you know where you want to go. You know it's gonna not gonna come in 1 year. Like, coming back on one thing you said earlier in the discussion, it's like you had great results this year, but didn't change anything from your training. And I like this idea because with Instagram and the reels and everybody having this secret recipe to training, I feel like people are trying to find hacks and change every year to yeah, like you said, to get to the Pogacar level just by doing his training. And there's not enough said about just doing something with consistency for 2 years and not rushing to the finish line. That's also something we're trying to do with William is trying to be patient and not rushing to the finish line because I mean it removes all the enjoyment as well, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think when you are patient and you work each step at a time, then if it's not working, it's easier to like address, like if I just want to get slightly faster at swimming or slightly better on the bike, like if I don't do that, then I can address it. Whereas if I was just like, I want to be world champion in 3 years and then like in 2 years I'm not, and I'm like, how do I address it? Like everything just changes, you just think you throw everything out the window and change it all. Um, and as I said earlier, it's just having that belief in what you're doing is right. Like I don't think you can just keep doing the same thing and it'll work. You need to keep doing the same thing that's right, and that's like you guys push out like such good quality content that like you should have like more followers than you do, like in my opinion, but like that's not you can't do it overnight, and it's just that belief that what we're doing is right and we are trying our best and that we will get there, but we just have to keep doing it and not ever like thinking that it's not right or it's not enough, it's just about like you believe in the process, then you have to do it, and it's not going to happen very quickly. And I think that's like a very strong.
We lost you. We lost you at the moment you said you gotta believe in the process.
No, we lost you you said it was
I
a
think
really strong, and then we lost you.
Oh no, but I lost him even
Yeah.
before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
like the original we were saying. Yes, because see, this is one of the things. Look, I can't even. We don't pay for Wi-Fi. It's like another £40 a month, so we just use 4G. We pay unlimited data sims, but like again, it's just you save money here and there. This is like not the thing that many people my age have to do, but it's like I wouldn't change it. I just it's part of it, isn't it? Like you have to live that
The
lifestyle, and everyone's done it who's made it.
the title of the podcast will be making it to the top triathletes without Wi-Fi and heat.
Yeah, I know. It makes it sound like I live in a cave, but it's literally just that, like, yeah, as I say, you save money here and there, and it is hard because, like, when you said I'm PTO ranked 80th, like next year I want to be, say, PTO ranked top 50, and the year after that top 20 or whatever, and it's like when you're trying to get, say, maybe not top 50, but top 20, you're dealing with guys that do make over probably 100,000 like euro a year, and they have more ability to train in nicer places and
Hmm.
have better facilities. They can do aero testing, and they can in a sport that's as big as triathlon, like it does help to have a bigger budget. But obviously, like to break through to that level, everyone else who's there has done that at some point. They had to break through to guys that are now probably retired. So it's just part of it, isn't it?
You just opened the whole aero thing in triathlon, which is the biggest thing with the drafting and the equipment and the difference in budget that you have, which makes the
Yeah,
sport
the
kind of almost unfair for some people, depending on your qualities too. Because if you can enjoy the drafting and you've got good sponsors, then even if you're way worse than the others, you can always end up with better results. And I feel like you've been maybe a victim of that for a bit with some races, but
Yeah, I try. I don't complain about it because someday I'm gonna make it my strength. Like if there's motorbikes at the front, like I work till I can swim in the front pack, and then the motorbikes can follow me off the front, and we can drop everyone else.
yeah,
Um,
you'll do
that's like
that.
a big thing is like the motos and stuff. And but when I first came to Leeds, Alistair told me that he said you'll never win a championship race if you don't win. He said you'll never win a championship race if you don't swim front pack. And it wasn't because the best athletes are in the front pack. It's just the convoy of motorbikes and lead motos and like things like that. It has an influence, and unfortunately sports is the entertainment industry. We are entertainers, and the only reason that there's money in sport is because it entertains people. So like you can't just take away these camera bikes. It's part of it, and that was the reality. And rather than like think, oh, I'm not gonna make it, I was like, well, then it's obvious, isn't it? I just need to work till I can swim front pack.
Well, I think the plan is clear. Focus on on the next block, then have a really long-term vision, and trusting the process that you will make it. So that's I think a
Yeah.
really good message to send to the people. So I'm happy with this one.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. I was explaining it to someone today. I was like, yeah, they do like Remco and Nadal and stuff, and I was like, I think they might be confused with me. I was like, I'm just gonna have to say that I'm on my way there.
Yeah. No, but I think people prefer the story like from bottom to the end.
Yeah, I was thinking, have you guys ever watched the Billie Eilish interviews?
Where she does like an interview every year
Yeah,
to
yeah.
answer the same
I,
questions. Yeah.
yeah, I really want to. I think I might with my girlfriend set it up similar to like just how I set up the camera and stuff and film some questions because I just think like I wish I'd started it earlier, but like if you ask me at the end of each year what I think about the year and stuff, and it's crazy the perception over time. And obviously if I get to the level I want to be and expect I can get to, then when you give the T100 people like this footage, they'll be like, this is crazy, we can make a great video. I can't believe like 3 years ago you started filming saying like
Yeah.
I'm 3 years away from the PTO. Like it's just But it's something that like I believe, like I do genuinely believe it, and I think that's like my biggest asset. I don't just want it. I believe it's possible.
But even people outside of sports, they would love to do that for their kids or their family in the future. I have a friend, he's been
Yeah, I
doing
think
that
it's
every
such a
new
good idea.
year. He takes a video of himself for like 1 hour, and he just speaks about his goals. And he has no ambitions in sport or being famous or whatever, so that it could be used for a video. But just for the sake of recording yourself and seeing how you change through the years, it's always worth it. So I would recommend that
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I think I'll do it. I think this has inspired me.
Nice. Well, you've got the camera, you've got the mic and everything, so you have a proper
Yeah,
setup.
the professional influencer.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're on your way. I hope you're more on your way to the top of the triathlon pyramid than to the influencer pyramid. Maybe you'll earn
The
more
influencer
money out
pyramid's
of it.
hard,
Yeah,
but you overtake them if you get a good result in triathlon. That's the one thing. So
Yeah. No, but making content is hard. We gotta respect everyone.
yeah, I mean, I always tell people I'm like, it's not free stuff. Like it doesn't work like that. I was
Yeah.
like, it's so hard.
Yeah.
we're going on the podcast route, so I think the pyramid will be quite steep as well. But
Yeah, it will.
as you
But I
said,
mean,
we're never gonna have Nadal on the podcast, so
yeah,
I
but you
think
break it
it's
down, don't you? And that's the thing with it is like when you look at yourselves now, it's like you won't have Nadal on the podcast. But if you break down everything that you can do and then improve them all and then keep looking at things you can do and like even when you improve them like such a small amount that on its own it doesn't seem like it's gotten any better. But then when you add them all together, like that's when you notice the difference. So
yeah,
like
sure.
there's just different ways like your reels, your podcasts, like your engagement, like who you're collaborating with, like your if you guys have LinkedIn and who you're able to reach out to, your networking, your connections, and all these things. Like if you improve each of them like a little bit as a whole, like the brand and things move forward. But it's not about trying to get like Nadal on the podcast as soon as you can. It's about next year being bigger than this year. And if you can do that every year, then there's no reason why you can't get to the point where like you're able to
Mm,
podcast like some of the best guys in sport around the world because they want to be on platforms and you guys have made a very good start to what could be like a mega platform for athletes.
Yeah.
thanks. And anyway, I think that for people listening to us, having you also has maybe more value in the moment they are at in their lives and in their career. So that's also something quite precious to have your vision and yeah, have a tiny bit of what your life looks like and your objectives. So that was great to have you on.
Yeah. And the thing is if you always interview the ones that already made it, they kind of forgot what it took them to make it to that level.
Yeah, I
So
think
that
so.
their advices are not relevant anymore. Whereas you are in the,
That's
I mean, you're almost breaking through already, so it's almost too late. We should have had you like earlier, like 1 or 2 years before, but it makes your advices way more relevant and like it feels like your feet are really grounded and it always makes sense what you say. So I think people will like it.
yeah.
And maybe we can just introduce a little thing where I just ask you like where can people find you if they want to know more
Oh
about
yeah.
you and your journey? Where should they go?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I made it nice and simple at will_try. And then on TikTok, I've not been posting as much, but I'm going to start posting more. And I think that's Will Does Try. So I changed them. I changed them from my second name to make them more accessible.
Nice. I guess we'll see you next year and we'll have
Yeah, we'll
the
do it. We'll
same
find
episode.
some questions as well. We'll
Yeah,
re-answer them. We'll compare
yeah,
it. We already
yeah.
have a
That
plan
can
for
be nice. I think I like
it.
when
Yeah.
people invite as the same guest and they ask them the same questions, and just to know what they will answer. We'll do the Billie Eilish but longer version.
you need someone going up in their career rather than someone retiring and going back down.
Yeah, exactly. We are
I
just
mean,
hoping that everyone we interview is going to make it to the next level. So it makes
That's it.
the
But
episode more
you're putting the work,
interesting.
yeah. The more, the better. And find interview 100 people. It's like me. I might email 50 sponsors and one like actually wants to support me. But if I email one sponsor, then the one probably wouldn't reply.
Yeah, but then
yeah,
because you sent that email before, you can always reach out 1 year later and you said, I already reached you like 1 year ago
Yeah,
and
this
I'm
this
really
this is something
dedicated.
I said to my partner. Yeah, you have to put your goals for the next year on your email so that a year later, when they've said that they don't have the budget, because that's what they'll always say, then a year later you forward them the same email and say, I actually achieved more than I said I was gonna, and this is what my plans are for the next year. And at that point, I've got sponsors by doing that.
I feel like with the we've looped the loop, like we say. I don't know if it does it mean something in English to loop the loop.
Sometimes you might say we've gone full circle.
Yeah, we've gone full circle. That's
Yeah,
the thing I wanted to say.
back where we were, back where we started. Yeah, all finished.
Thank you, Will, and have a nice off season, even though you're training a lot. So
Yeah, the
enjoy,
winter arc.
yeah,
Yeah.
winter arc.
You also have the
Yeah,
same
so
algorithm, like send that to bro that is doing winter arc type of thing.
I built this For You page brick by brick.
Yeah.
That's what they say. So yeah, David Goggins all the time.
Yeah, let's go. All right. Hey, you made it to the end of this episode. Congratulations. You are officially part of the 20% of the people that do go to the end of the episode that starts. So congrats for that. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, if you have any feedbacks, please feel free to reach out on Instagram. And if I could ask you a little favor at the end of this video, and I think that if you made it to this point, it means that you probably liked it. And if you could also put a 5-star review, that would be amazing. So yeah, thank you for that. It was William and Robin, and we have invested in microphones for the future of this podcast. So don't worry, the quality will get better. Eventually, our questions will get better as well. So please trust us on that, and we'll do our best to come back with great episodes really soon. So thank you for tuning in, and we wish you a very good day and a happy and healthy training and a good year too. Yeah, that's a lot. But yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.